All right, we have a lot to cover today, so more people trickle in as we start, but I would like to get started to make sure we have as much time as possible to talk about this brand new booster pack. So welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Eric Pitmanis, and I'm joined today by our Senior Director of Applications, Tom Vitez, Don McCullough, our Cloud Architect, and Annie Jolicoeur, our Program Operations Coordinator here at Canary. I'm also joined by Yanko Zelyaskov and Svetsan Georgia from Sanofi, who will be introducing their booster pack. We are recording today's presentation and we'll have it available on YouTube shortly after the webinar concludes. The PowerPoint slides to today's webinar were sent to you ahead of time, so if you have them in your email, please feel free to follow along. If you'd like to ask a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A option here in Zoom. We have a couple spots in the presentation where we will address questions, so feel free to write your questions in the QA panel at any time. We'll get to them during those periods. Now I'd like to pass it to Annie for our introduction in French. Annie?
Merci Eric. Alors, bonjour à tous et bienvenue à ce webinaire. Je m'appelle Annie Jolicoeur, je suis coordonnatrice à l'opération des programmes chez Canary. Avant de commencer, on tient à vous aviser que cette présentation est enregistrée et sera disponible sur YouTube peu après la fin du webinaire. Les diapositives PowerPoint qui sont utilisées durant la présentation d'aujourd'hui devraient vous avoir été envoyées à l'avance. Donc, si vous voulez suivre avec votre propre copie, sentez-vous bien à l'aise. Si vous souhaitez poser une question pendant la présentation, s'il vous plaît, utilisez l'option questions-réponses de votre menu Zoom. On a des moments prévus durant la présentation pour répondre aux questions. Alors, à tout moment, n'hésitez pas à inscrire vos questions dans l'option questions et réponses et on va y répondre au moment prévu. Maintenant, je redonne la parole à Eric pour continuer le webinaire. Merci.
Thank you very much, Annie. To begin today's webinar, we're going to quickly go over our agenda. If I can get my slide to advance here. Go over our agenda with some quick DAIR updates and news. You'll hear from me as well as Tom, and then we're going to go right into our booster pack presented by Sanofi. So just quick updates and news. Like today, we have our great booster pack that will be unveiled. We have 3 more that are coming in the next coming months. Please watch your email inbox for when those invites to the next webinars for each of these go out as well. And I would like to pass it off to Tom, who wants to talk a little bit about DAIR migration. So Tom, please take it away.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I just wanted to push out a quick reminder to our DAIR participants that are currently in the program. You probably have seen an email come by your inbox about migrations for users in the AWS part of our hybrid cloud. I just wanted to bring to your attention that this is an important step in the program, migrating over to a subtenant model in AWS. And it's fairly light touch for you guys. We're all set up, Don and Shagun on the support side, to help you with this migration, so it will go quickly and smoothly. We're about 25% complete, and estimated completion of all migrations will be by June. So watch for that email. We'll set up a time slot that works for you to go through this migration. It'll take anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes tops to get you through a migration, and you can test your new cloned instances in AWS, make sure everything is good, and you can carry on. So thank you for your help in the DAIR migration.
Thank you for the update there, Tom. So if anyone does want to hear more, get more information on the DAIR migration, please feel free to reach out to either Tom or at Don for more if you have any questions. Moving on to today, we are going into dive into our new booster pack, Smart Contracts Blockchain DLT with Hyperledger Fabric. So I'd like to welcome both Yanko and Svetsan to the speaking floor. Yanko and Svetsan, please take it away when you're ready.
Hey, thank you. Hope you can see me and hear me well. My name is Tsvetan Georgiev, and the session we're gonna do in 2 parts. I'll lead the first part, and then I'll hand over to Janko. Before we continue, I'll just show you quickly the agenda. We will shortly introduce ourselves and the company we are part of. We'll go through the BoosterPack introduction, and then talk a bit about the technology the BoosterPack is all about, and what kind of problems we are trying to solve and with the BoosterPack. Then Janko will lead through the real demo and talk a bit more about the technicalities behind the BoosterPack. Okay, so myself and Janko, we founded Sanofi in 2018. Our focus is on building enterprise solutions and applications. We are focused particularly in new technologies, and of course, distributed ledger technology is one of our key areas we invest in. About ourselves, we are actually architects and developers with over 20 years of experience. We are essentially behind the company, and we have a long history of enterprise application development in industries like such e-commerce, pharma, insurance. We also do have a background in building blockchain DLT applications for enterprises, and we've done this in different projects in different industries in the past few years since we were founded. Our company is actually also behind a product, Consortia.io, which is a tool to govern, deploy, and manage blockchain business networks across different cloud providers and different infrastructures. So I will continue with the BoosterPack introduction. I'll talk a bit about the technology behind it. And essentially, it is a distributed ledger technology, which is more or less the foundation of the blockchain technology, which is pretty much used in a lot of cases nowadays, especially in the public space. And you know, those like blockchain networks like Ethereum and others. Essentially, what this distributed ledger technology is doing is a consensus of replicated, shared, and synchronized digital data, which is spread across multiple locations. So have in mind that those multiple locations are usually governed and operated by different parties. And the replication of the data itself is done based on peer-to-peer network algorithms that are technically speaking based on blockchain technology, where the data, the transactional data is persisted in blocks linked in an immutable way through their hash codes. And now, when we're talking about blockchain, as we know, there are two different type of blockchains, two generic different type of blockchains we're talking about. One of them is public blockchains. As I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it is one of the most famous is Ethereum, that allows the developers to program so-called smart contracts. It comes with some issues that are preventing this technology to be really adopted in the enterprise world. And those things are generally related to performance, scalability, and of course, privacy. Because all the data that is stored on those public blockchains is essentially public and visible to everyone. This is where the Hyperledger Fabric comes into the picture. So this technology is under a project named Hyperledger Foundation, which is under the umbrella of Linux Foundation. That Sanofi is actually a member of. This is an enterprise-grade platform. It is an open source one and ready to be used by multiple enterprises, any enterprise essentially. It's explicitly and specifically designed for enterprise use. There are no crypto tokens or tokens per se, so its focus is essentially to cover different industries like the ones that we already have applications that share data between. Some key capabilities of the platform that comparing to the public blockchains, the public networks, is of course related to performance and scalability. And we know that any enterprise application needs to be responsive, needs to handle tons of data in many cases. So that is one key capability of Hyperledger Fabric. We have also a capability of privacy of transactions. That is very important when we're talking in the context of regulations like GDPR. It is a modular and configurable architecture, and that is very important because different use cases may require some modifications. Therefore, the software itself allows you to change or enhance some key capabilities of the platform in a modular way. And of course, it provides the smart contract where actually the business logic is could be coded and programmed into different languages like Java, Go, and Node.js. Okay. So why is that technology useful? So we know that in nowadays, you know, the business and the globalization and the businesses are pretty much international, operate internationally. And they work with each other. Therefore, sharing of data is very crucial. So you take any use case and you will see that to some point software needs to exchange data with another software sitting in another business in another location. So most of the data and the software is essentially a centralized type kind of applications that usually sit on a cloud or on premise. And therefore, sharing data between parties is very expensive and very cumbersome process. We know that there are many cases when data is being exchanged. Then we have concerns about the quality of the data being exchanged. There are usually a lot of reconciliation going on to verify that the data shared between parties is actually can be trusted and is not corrupted. And the businesses can take the right decision based on the quality of that data, right? So how DLT is actually solving that kind of a trust problem when sharing data is that the data that's being shared is actually part of transactions that are stored in blocks, right? And those blocks are immutable. So this means once transactional data is being stored on the network, regardless on which peer regardless of the peer, regardless of the location of the peer, it is guaranteed that the data is consistent. Those blockchain networks could reduce the time cost and, of course, risk associated with information, private data sharing. and they significantly improve trust and visibility. So there is no essentially need of any reconciliation or any need to wait like days, weeks for some kind of a program to push data between parties, to verify the quality of the data afterwards, to do complex auditing, and all of that is essentially solved by the technology, by the nature of the technology itself. So where that technology is used, I've listed only few, but it's used all over the places, all over the industries. Very specific use cases and very significant use cases are, of course, in supply chain management. When we're talking about traceability of goods being moved, not just between different provinces within a country, but also internationally. We are also talk about claims and reconciliation, delivery of goods and all of that. So traceability and of course, move of or checking the provenance of data and goods. It's a very key issue that is solved by the technology. Of course, there are other use cases like healthcare and pharma, and of course, insurance, which is related to regulatory reporting and statistical data between different, essentially that concerns the different insurer companies and regulators. We all know that recently there was also some implementation when talking about healthcare and pharma about vaccination passports, and we've had multiple implementations of applications on blockchain and Hyperledger Fabric in particular to deal with keeping a proof of vaccinations. Okay, so what problem the BoosterPack is solving? So that is a network of, we're talking here about a network of peer, right? And that comes with complex, with some complexity and technicalities to set up and bootstrap a network. So this one, this activity may take, depending on the knowledge of the person who's doing it, may take a few hours to a couple of days. So with the BoosterPack, we are actually simplifying that process, and Janko will show shortly after how that works to bootstrap a Hyperledger Fabric network on Canary. We also implementing and deploying user-friendly applications. Here, I'm not just talking about programming the business logic in a smart contract, but also I'm talking about exposing that business logic through user-friendly user interface and web APIs. And this is what the BoosterPack contains. It is not just the deployment of the network. The BoosterPack also delivers a business application. Have in mind that is just a sample application to bootstrap any work that the consumer of the BoosterPack may decide to do, like a proof of concept in any scenario. But it contains the key elements that are required for blockchain application to be consumed and used by the end users, which includes the network itself, includes the smart contract, then the web APIs, and of course the UI to consume that from end user perspective. Our application, sample application that we've built is based on a clinical trial use case in the pharma industry. And of course, that BoosterPack serves as a jumpstart to build and deploy any industry-specific application. So the whole point is that anyone could take the code, do some adjustments, and tweak it to make it work for any other specific industry use case. Okay, so I will hand over to Janko to go through the demo and explain a bit more about the technicalities behind the BoosterPack. Janko?
Thank you, Tsvetan. That was a great introduction to the BoosterPack. Now we're going to move over to the BoosterPack itself as a demo, and then we'll check out how everything is working together.
Perfect. Do you want to share, Janko?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm going to right now.
Perfect.
Just a second. Maybe let me just find the right windows there.
And while you're getting your screen share ready, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to put them in the QA and we will answer them after Janko is done with the demo.
So let me so in terms of the BoosterPack itself, let's start with the flight plan. So we already talked about what the solution is. We'll just cover quickly the documentation that we have on the website, which should be published anytime soon if it's not already. But it basically explains the basics of what Hyperledger Fabric is. Basically what Tsvetan just mentioned, with a bit more detailed information on what the technology is, with some links of how to use the technology and what are the benefits. We talk about the trust and transparency and traceability there, and also what industries the technology is useful for. We've also included some of the best practices that we've come up into our own experience of how to deal with the network, how to build the network in the best possible way. And we have also covered the tips and traps that you may run into if you decide to implement a network on Hyperledger Fabric. So there's, of course, like every technology, the more complex the technology, the more problematic it could be for your implementation. So we've tried to cover a bit of the hindrances that you may face, but also what you need to follow through to make sure that you're successful in your either POC or implementation. So let's we have included some tutorials. Those are more or less useful links for what exactly where exactly you can go to get more information on how to do things. Because Hyperledger Fabric, like Zlatan said, it's modular. It has a lot of components, and we certainly, I mean, we believe that it's not as easy as it could be because the technology is new. But we're trying to make this as simple as possible for anyone to start with, and those tutorials should help in the long run. And let's jump towards the sample solution. So the sample solution is basically what the BoosterPack presents in terms of application, in terms of the blockchain network that is built, and what we have here in the sample solution is this is the overview for the high-level architecture of the BoosterPack. So the solution that we've built is based on a browser. So as soon as you have a browser and you start the application, you can connect to the sample solution. We have the core network here, which is the Hyperledger Fabric. We have the command line interface that you can use if you want to. As soon as we deploy the application with Hyperledger Fabric, you can use the command line interface to interact with the network, but you don't have to because it's a bit more complex. Anyways, we we have provided that capability. Everything runs on Docker, and our sample application is based on certain web APIs, similar to REST. We don't claim that they're totally REST, but they're easy to use, and they're consumed by our front-end UI, which is Vue.js. And of course, we have the center of it. Without that, the application is not going to be useful. We have the chain code, the clinical trials chain code that links towards peer 1, peer 2 that we have. And actually, we have 3 peers. I'll show you quickly. And as part of every Hyperledger network, we also have an ordering service, which is a must. This is the service that allows the transactions to be ordered and approved by the network. And then the certificate authority, which generally sits separate from the network. And that certificate authority is used for signing transactions and also for issuing identities. Right. I think you can take your time whenever you want to go to the solution document. We've added a bit more information on what the solution is like. But let's jump directly into how to set up the network. Right, let me just, I think I didn't share everything, so I'll just stop sharing and I will try again. Right, so now what we are interested in is how to log into Canary DAIR. So as soon as we go to cloud.canary.ca, now I have already logged into our account. So there's 2 ways of deploying the application. The first one is through the service catalog, which basically allows you to select the solution, fill in the details, and press order now or add to order. I'm not going to do it that way. I'll use the more sophisticated way, as we say, which is around creating the app. I just want to show exactly how this is working. And over here, I have a demo instance 1, which I've already created, which we're going to use. But for the time being, just to prove that, to show you how you can use the way this works, is to go through the application process. So we're going to create a demo instance 2. We're going to choose the group, which is AWS. We're gonna choose the cloud. The environment we don't need to select, so we can just skip that. On the next page, you can see that our new instance is basically having the Hyperledger Fabric application, and then we're going to install this on a Ubuntu OS. So as soon as you click on the Ubuntu, most of everything here is pre-set up. So we're just going to change the instance name, and then we're going to go, everything else you can leave except the fields that you need to select. For example, the network. So the network is usually what you need to select. I mean, I think everybody on the DAIR account will have a network. We also have a security group that we've set up, which allows us to connect to the ports that we are exposing. For this application, that's the port 80. Right. Everything else stays as is. So we go to next. And then we complete. That's simple as that. So now DAIR is going to start our instance. As soon as we select the instance, we can see that it's in process and it's being provisioned. But because that takes 10 minutes or so, so we're not going to wait for it now. So we're going to go back to demo instance 1. So the way to connect to the application is to copy the public IP, which gets assigned by the cloud provider. And then we go and we connect to that instance, basically just pasting the IP into a browser. And this is our landing page. So this is the landing page for the BoosterPack. It represents our sample use case, which is around, like Zatan already mentioned, this is around creating a consortium of 3 parties. The first one is a fictional general hospital, which basically records it provides the clinical trial cases, or records any issues that they may face. Then we have the Nova Pharma, which is also a fictional pharmaceutical company. They basically provide the drug, let's say, or the medicine that is being tested. And their role in the consortium is to review the cases that the general hospital is recording. And then the third participant in this network is the regulator. So that's usually a government organization, let's say, again, fictional government regulator that can review and acknowledge the cases. But let's directly jump into taking a look at the blockchain. So one of the really interesting parts of this BoosterPack is that you can take a look at the Hyperledger Explorer. So if you open that, first of all, we can, okay, let's sign out first. All right, well, maybe sign up doesn't work. Anyways, the username and password are on the website, on the solution document. We log in with the username and password, and this is what you see as the dashboard. So this tool allows you to take a look at your network. For example, here you can see all the peer names. You can see the latest block on the blockchain, which I've created an hour ago, and then some other that comes in a day ago. You can see how many blocks there on the blockchain, how many transactions have been recorded, and how many nodes. So the nodes are basically the peers in our case, and then we have the order, which is not counted as node. If we click on the network, we can see a bit more information of what's available out there. We can see that we have the peers, the orders. They all belong to different MSPs. So that's the membership service provider IDs, which are recorded on the network. Every participant needs to have a unique MSP ID, and that ID is used for signing transactions to in the network and so forth. And then we have the order. The order it is just named simply as order MSP in the as an MSP ID. And then we can see all the, whether, sorry, not this one. We'll go and see the blocks. So if we search for transactions in a different time frame, we can see that the recorded transactions are coming on a particular channel name that we have configured. And then, for example, if we take a look at the block hash, that would just give us basic information. But then if we look at the transaction details and if we dive further into it, then we can see some of the key value pairs that are recorded on the blockchain. So this is implementation specific. We're not going to go into the details of what exactly is being saved, but so that if you're interested to know what exactly is being saved on the blockchain, you can come in and take a look at this. Right, and then we have only one chain code, as we mentioned, which is the trial cases chain code. So let's create a transaction on the blockchain and see how this works. So we'll go back to the landing page. I'm going to close those ones here. And then let's start with the general hospital. Let's pretend that we work for the general hospital and we log in as a user. We see that we already have a case recorded, but let's record a new one. Let's record the case for Josh, mild symptoms. And then which site that is, that's the Boston General Hospital. As soon as we hit record case, so we are recording the chain code from the web application. We're recording the case and we're showing it here. So now Nova Pharma, they can also log in towards the same blockchain, just a different application. As you can see, we have the logo here, so you know exactly which participant you're logged in with. So they can see the cases that have been reported by the Boston General Hospital. So we can choose to investigate a certain case. So let's say we started investigating, we were seeing the information that we want. And then at the same time, the regulator, if we log in as a regulator, they should be able to see that information as well. All right, as you can see that the case on Josh is currently in progress, investigation in progress. We have a new case on John, and then we can see all the information that has been recorded on the blockchain. To prove that this is the case, you can still open the Hyperledger Explorer. You can go to the transactions, you can search, and then you can see that new transactions have been recorded by Nova, by General Hospital, right? So now we are going to go back to Nova Pharma, and let's say that we finished investigating that process, that case, and then we decided to close it. So that should generate a new transaction on the blockchain. All right. So as you can see, this is the new transaction recorded. It was recorded just now, which is a second or a minute ago. And that transaction now shows on the regulator. If we refresh that, we can see that the case was closed. And then the regulator can review the case and accept the case. So going back to the Hyperledger Explorer, we can search again for the transaction, and we can see the transaction coming into the blockchain and record it. So this is basically the flow. As soon as the regulator accepts this case, all the other participants can also see that it was accepted. And then this is it's a very simple flow, but we believe that it proves pretty well how blockchain can work in the business scenario like that. So that's our sample application, and this is how you can play with it. The other thing that I wanted to show is the solution source code. You can find that in GitHub, and you can, we'll send the link. I'm sure it's already available on the site, on the sample solution documentation. But as you can see, it is structured in a way that you have the chain code, you have the web application, and we have the scripts for starting the Fabric network. All right. Well, I think that covers everything that we wanted to show for the time being. Eric, do you have any questions?
We have none currently in the QA panel, so anyone who does have any questions about the booster pack for Janko and Svetsson, please do type it in the QA panel. Also, if you have general questions about blockchain, and these are the two experts you want to talk to, so please do feel free to write any questions you do have in the QA panel below. In the meantime, I will finish off my slide deck here. 2 seconds to move over here. Well, thank you again, both to Janko and Svetsson for their presentation and their booster pack, which should be up on the website right now. You can see it through the catalog. If you can't find it in the catalog at the moment, there are links in the PowerPoint deck that was sent earlier today in your email, so you should be able to access it there. Finishing off today, while we wait for some more questions to come in, we are still looking for some booster pack builders. We have some open spots available for booster pack builders like Janko and Svetsson today. So if you are a Canadian business and are looking to share both your expertise and experience with an emerging technology, please do check out our website and submit an expression of interest, otherwise known as an EOI. Booster pack builders come with many perks. Becoming a booster pack builder comes with many perks. Not only are you going to be connected to our own community and receive exposure and recognition, as well as access to the Canary marketing team to help with that exposure and recognition, you also receive $50,000 as payment for becoming a builder. So if you are at all interested, please do check out our website, canary.ca/cloud, for more information, and you can submit an expression of interest there. Our next webinar will be introducing DAIR BoosterPack static and dynamic application security testing, and that'll be with Parabellix Corporation, and is happening on April 27th, 2022 at 1 p.m. The registration link is also in the slide deck that was sent earlier today, and there will be emails following up with the registration link for that as well. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So if you do have any questions remaining for Janko and Svetsson, please do put them in the QA panel below, and we'll give a couple more minutes for that to come in. Actually, I do have a quick question for both Janko and Svetsson, at least to address, because I know many people associate cryptocurrency with blockchain, and you are driving forward the idea of blockchain for business and enterprise use. what benefits do you see blockchain providing for business and enterprise solution that could be used by an everyday business, even though I know you just went into some detail on it with your BoosterPack?
Well, we believe that blockchain is not the solution for everything. Of course, there was a hype a few years back where everybody was talking about blockchain, how it can revolutionize the world and make things different. And of course, everyone was excited about it, but I believe that it has its own applications that we can leverage as a technology, and we can solve certain problems. But we have already a few use cases. Unfortunately, they're mostly for big companies and enterprises where data is basically flowing in a much smoother and streamlined way compared to what the companies or enterprises did before that, right? It removes documentation, it streamlines the data and the transactional data between certain entities. Whether that's could be leveraged for small enterprises, yes, we believe so. There's plenty of use cases that we can basically analyze, and we can provide a sample solution on that. So, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, yes, I can add a bit more on that. So essentially, whenever we look at the use case, because we've seen a lot that are essentially solvable by the existing architecture and software without need of blockchain or DLT. Essentially, the big thing or one of the major things we're looking at is if there is a lack of trust or bad quality of data that's been shared between parties. It's not necessarily that those parties are different businesses. It could be different units of the same business operating in different countries, for example, or within the same country. We've seen a lot of disconnect. So, for example, this pharma use case that we showed, in reality, a clinical trial, in case of something goes wrong at the hospital, there are very strict regulations in terms of timing. So when a case appears and they have some rules in terms of how long it should take for the involved parties to report that to the regulator. And the process is heavily manual. So people use phones, faxes, and when the time zone difference is a case, is a problem, it may take time. So they may miss cases, and when you don't satisfy the regulation, right? So you get penalties and all of that. So with a solution, a blockchain solution, as you see, all the data is fluent. I mean, once a case appears, everyone on the network see that real time. So there is no need to essentially, sign documents, send them over fax anymore. All of that trust is automated by the technology.
Excellent. Well, that's more information than I could ever want for an answer. That's perfect. So hopefully that provides some insight to everyone here. We do have some questions that did come in. So the first question, I'm not sure which one of you would like to answer, but is the governance decentralized for smart contracts like Fabric?
The governance, I guess so there are a couple of things here when we're talking about governance. So technically speaking, there is the so-called ordering service piece of Fabric that's very specific to Fabric, of course. And yes, all of those things, components are decentralized, meaning that all the parties on the network may sorry, my video disappeared, may host those nodes and have them run in in a completely decentralized way, preferably, of course, in different cloud providers in different geographical locations for high availability. Now, the governance of the network is a completely different story, because that essentially translates into who controls the network, because here we are talking about private and permissioned network. This means the parties that are forming the network initially needs to set up a governance board entirely from business point of view and say who has the code to make changes on the network topology. Like what I'm referring here as the changes could be what if tomorrow we want to make business with another party? So who gets to decide who invites that party on the network and how that party joins the network? So technically speaking, it's a straightforward process that Hyperledger Fabric provides. It's a business a problem, though, that needs to be solved network by network. Usually what happens is that the parties come together, they form a consortium, and then they decide who gets to perform the changes on the network. Of course, you could do that like majority, like 50 plus 1%, or you can dedicate that authority to only subset of the companies. Like think about Costco and Walmart, right? Working with small partners that supply them. Of course, they won't let the other partners control the network. They won't control. So of those, like use case by use case, when partners are equal, they may go with the majority concept. So yes, the governance, of course, is distributed, and it depends how you design it.
Okay, so it all comes back to how it's designed. We do have some other questions coming in as well. Does each node contain the copy of all transactions? And can, say, the regulator have its own node? And also, who controls the software? And how do you ensure that Hyperledger Fabric is used and not another technology? So a lot of questions in that one.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yes, every peer that is, so first of all, there is a concept of channel. So there is, in Hyperledger Fabric, it's not just one ledger, one blockchain. You can have multiple, and you can have transaction crossing those channels, right? So each channel has set of organizations. So every peer that is part of a channel or a ledger contains a copy of the ledger. Okay, of course, you may run a peer that is part of a completely different ledger and completely different channel. So think about a big business being part of different networks. It's not necessarily that you put all of your business and the business of all your departments into one network, right? So there are multiple international businesses that have totally different business operations, like Tata, for example, from India. You know, they make cars, they do consulting. You know, so eventually they will end up being part of different networks and essentially running different peers that have different ledgers on them. So that is related to the peer owning the ledger. So yes, they do have all transactions recorded there and distributed across the peers that do participate on a particular channel / ledger. There was something else to the question. Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, there's quite a few. Yeah, so
yeah.
The other one was, how do you ensure that Hyperledger Fabric is the technology used and not another technology?
Oh, okay. So they do have the way they share data is specific to Hyperledger Fabric, right? Of course, if you're referring to having another node joining the party, if that node misbehaves, it won't commit transaction because there is a majority of votes going on here. And if that node is not does not understand the protocol that Hyperledger Fabric is using, of course, it can't join the network because it will fail on the connection, technical connection level. So that's how you more or less force that every peer that joins the network is Hyperledger Fabric implementation. And of course, again, think about it that those peers are owned by different parties, right? So of course there is no guarantee that some of them won't be hacked or whatnot. So that's why the we have that term endorsement policy in Hyperledger Fabric, which dictates how many of the peers or the owners or participants on the network needs to endorse a transaction in order for that transaction to be valid. So if usually it's a majority of them, or maybe a subset, a particular subset of them. So that's based on the design you go with. That's how you confirm that even though there might be a malicious node, you could still be secure.
Okay, thank you for that. We do have one more question here, which is, I'm not familiar with this acronym, so hopefully both of you are, but do you use RBFT consensus mechanism?
The Hyperledger Fabric is currently using Raft as for the ordering service, because this is where the consensus algorithm is. There are new implementations coming in the picture. I haven't checked when exactly that will come out, which will allow some kind of BFT, which is Byzantine fault tolerant algorithm, to be implemented. There are already some public implementations of it, like public meaning open source projects that allows quite fast and secure PBFT implementation. So more of those algorithms, I guess, will be coming part of the project soon, as there are some, of course, needs in some cases to use different consensus. But at the end of the day, the consensus algorithm itself is pluggable. So this means you could change the ordering service to use some other kind of consensus algorithm without impacting your peers or your application implementation of your applications.
Okay, and we do have one final question, as I think that's all we have time for today, is can you give us a sense of how well Hyperledger Fabric DLT scales and performs for a commercial grade enterprise application?
There are some there is some public information about that, and also some studies, also some performance tests done by different groups independent from the community. That, of course, sorry, my video disappeared again. It depends on the use case, right? So it depends on the size of the data, size of the transactions, and all of that. Network, how close the peers are to each other, what is the network bandwidth, right? There is network latency, but in the ideal situation where everything is kind of perfect, they could go into thousands of transactions per second. Now scalability, how many peers you can host. Essentially, it's rather a question not how many peers, but how many participants can be on a network. And if you think about an enterprise use case, usually you don't get into the number of thousands. Usually it's into the number of tens, 20s, maybe 30. So scalability is, of course, there in place. It depends what you want to use the technology for. And when we're talking about real use cases, yes, there are plenty of them. We do have, I believe, the link to them into our BoosterPack that's actually posted on the Hyperledger Fabric official website, where they have the production implementations currently running all over the world. They're not just in Americas, they have few in Europe and also in Africa. So there are plenty of them officially published.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. That is all the time we have for today with the questions. If you do have more questions for both Svetsan and Yanko, you can find them at sanofi.ca. So if you would like to go there, you can contact them there, especially if you'd like to learn more about Sanofi. And their booster pack is on canary.ca/cloud. You can go to our booster pack catalog and you will find it there. Thank you everyone for coming out today, and thank you again to Yanko and Svetsan for their great booster pack. And we hope to see lots of chatter on the Slack channel as well about the booster pack. So please feel free to discuss that and check it out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.